This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petronovich.
And I'm Kelley Gilster of 618 Studios.
And we are on a mission to help wedding filmmakers and photographers level up their businesses so you can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here. Well, hey, Saira, thank you so much for joining us for this week's conversation. We are excited to have a content creator for the very first time on Level Up's podcast. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. I know that content creation, it's a fairly new concept within the industry. Photo video teams have been somewhat triggered by it. Some are really embracing it. So we're excited to talk about your journey and how you got to be a full-time content creator, right?
Yeah. So I've been in this industry for about, 14 years now. And have worked for various photographers, videographers, and planners. And so I've kind of learned the back end of the business. So I started out doing operations for a photography business and doing marketing for them. And at that time, there was really no social media of sorts. Instagram was fairly new. And we started doing BTS on Instagram stories when that first launched, I think like probably 10 years ago now. And back then, no one was really doing that. And we just started doing it on our iPhones. Of course, the quality back then was terrible. We've improved a lot since then. And I kind of just gradually grew into it. I worked with different planners and everyone was like, you should do this full time. Like, we love the service that you're providing. And it's instant. Whereas, of course, like a professional, it's going to take time because the work that you're doing is an art form and it does take, X amount of time to deliver that. Whereas this was just something quick for them to have and post, and just so their clients can see what they're doing. So really just that raw behind the scenes footage. And it kind of just became a full thing about a year and a half to 2 years ago. And it's been great so far. I've had good feedback. I really value everyone that I work with in this industry. It is a very tight-knit industry when it comes to the luxury market. And I've been blessed to kind of start out in the luxury market. And so, yeah, it's been great.
That's so amazing. You were like forging the way for this new movement even 10 years ago before it was even a thing. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, what was that footage? Because it was like the shakiest, most like crazy footage. But yeah, it was a lot of fun and we got great feedback at that time. And people really like to see what's going on at a wedding of our, caliber, because luxury weddings are their own ball game. And so not everyone gets to experience that. And so it was great feedback and it's kind of how it was born.
That's amazing. So fun. I would actually love to know, who's your primary clientele? Is it planners and planning teams or is it like brides and grooms?
So honestly, it's like half. So okay. I work with a lot of planners and florists, and I also work with video teams and photo teams, and they'll bring me on as their content creator for the day. And then I have my bride and grooms. And so it honestly right now is 50-50, and it does fluctuate from month to month, but it's a good balance.
That's so cool that you can kind of cater to like two spheres of the wedding industry and like no person is uncovered like as far as who you can target. So I think that's really cool, and a lot more diverse than maybe like what Kelley and I could do with our professional filmmaking brands where we're really only booking clients. Like, you have double the pool of clientele. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's been great. And I get a lot of, videographers that actually bring me on to their teams to do behind the scenes, and they'll sell that as a service. I'm sure you've kind of seen that as like a new thing where so then they'll bring me on and I'll shoot for them and for their clients. And it's a good harmony because the content that I put out is a little bit different from just raw footage. And so I go through everything and I'll, color correct all the footage that I'm giving to the clients or the planners or vendors. So it's a little bit more fine-tuned than just here's raw footage.
Airdropping it. Yeah, airdropping it to them.
Right. Yeah.
How do you differentiate when you show up on a wedding day, and because you serve such different types of clients, so say planners versus a bride and groom, what would you say that your approach is as a content creator when you're working for a planner? And then how does that differentiate on when you're working for a bride or a client?
Yeah, so for a planner, it really is having a conversation on what they're looking for, right? So do they really just want behind the scenes of themselves working on that day? Or do they want decor footage? Do they want, there's different things that go into wedding day. So it's having that conversation with them, seeing what they really want, and then really just being in the back of like the professionals, and getting that content for them. A lot of times for planners, it really is getting them in action at a wedding. We did a wedding, Kelly, that I basically followed the planner around and got BTS of her. And then the decor was insane. I think it was like $1 million wedding.
Yeah.
And so she really wanted that decor, as well, and her like footage of her in that decor. So we got a lot of that. And then from like a bride and groom standpoint, for them, it really is capturing their like candid moments with their friends and them, holding their dress and walking, and more of like that quick footage that kind of is within seconds. So really getting that aspect of it. And for them, for bride and grooms, it's not as curated, I would say, as a planner. We definitely do have conversations beforehand, but it's more so what trends do they want? If they want to do a transition with their bridal party, things of that sort. So it's a little bit more, I don't want to say fun because I don't like using that word, but it's
Playful, maybe?
playful. Yeah, it's more playful. And again, there are some clients who are like, well, I just want you to capture my like decor because I'm spending X amount of money. I really just want you to capture that decor footage. And that's all I really want. Or I really want you to just follow my parents around, and I want footage solely of my parents or family.
Aw.
So there's different, levels. Like I had a client recently who her dad was a little bit on the older end, and she was like, I really want you to follow my dad around throughout the day and capture his interactions with other family members and friends and just like get that joy, from him. She's like, it's more about his reactions than mine. So she's like, my videographer really can't just follow him around, all day. And so she's like, I really want you to do that. So that was nice. And it was just more candid stuff. It wasn't anything posed. I was just kind of like the fly on the wall. So it was great.
I think that that's really cool. And it's also similar to how Taylor and I's clients are, hearing out what's important to them, or maybe the planners telling us a little bit of what's most important to them. Just like you said, we very much had clients that are really, really excited about the design and the decor, other clients that are just more excited about the party, other people that are just really into the fact that all of their friends and family are gathering together. And like, by hearing that beforehand, you get to choose and we get to choose how we approach the wedding day and ultimately deliver content, either in professional video form or more candid video form like you do, that's going to give the client what they want. So I think that that's really cool. And I think that's kind of how things are more in the luxury space, is like having those conversations with clients or with the planner, and not just following like a cookie cutter approach.
Definitely. Yeah. And I definitely try to have conversations with the photography team and the videography team beforehand if I can, especially if I'm there for the bride and groom. I think it's super important to introduce myself, kind of explain where I'm coming from. We work so tightly together on the day of, and I respect the art that videographers do and photographers do, and I never want to overstep that. And I think with wedding content creation, there is this kind of like area where people are like, well, you're going to be in our shots, you're going to be taking over, you're going to be directing the shots. And I really like to educate whichever team that I'm working with that, I'm not there to dictate the shots, the angles, or anything of that sort. I'll tell them what the client wants me there for, and really kind of have that conversation if I can beforehand. And then come the wedding day, it's seamless. Like we have a great time. Most of the teams that I work with, I have worked with multiple times. And so they know that I'm not going to be in their way or, doing anything that's going to get in their shots. So I do try my best to kind of have those conversations and kind of move as one whole unit. Because on the wedding day, we kind of all are one big team. We're serving this client as one big team.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And that's something that Kelly and I love to say. We have both filmmakers and photographers who like this podcast primarily. And so obviously that can sometimes pose a problem if there's like conflicts of personality, but most of the time it's such a happy union, like pun intended. And we all work seamlessly as a team. I know that Kelly and myself both have clients who ask us like questions during consultations. How do you work with photographers? And we just say, like, you hired us both, and we both are on team client. Like, we want the best outcome from you, and that means that we won't step on your photographer's toes. We want to protect your photos as well as the film that we're providing. So I think the same should go for content creation. Obviously, these clients have hired you. They want you there. They want the product that you're creating. Therefore, you're like an equal, you're an equal member of the team. What are some of the things, if you could talk to wedding photographers and videographers, and kind of like, what would you prefer to communicate to them ahead of time for those who are listening to this to kind of educate them on how to best work with a content creator? Or what are some things maybe you would like them to ask you on the day of?
Yeah, I think what I do definitely is I like to have that conversation beforehand or even on the wedding day. And I ask them like, hey, like, what did the client ask you? Like, what's most important to them from your standpoint? And then they'll let me know whatever that is. And I'll tell them like, this is what the client wants from me. Like they want 3 trending videos during the getting ready. And then after that, I'm literally a fly on the wall. I'm not giving any directions of any sort. So it's really having that conversation before the wedding even starts. And I think it's up to the content creator, honestly, to go up to the photo and video team and introduce themselves, tell them a little about how they work, what they're doing, what they're going to be really capturing, and what's important to them during the whole wedding day. And I think from a video and photographer standpoint, I think for them, I think it's just important for them to tell the content creator that, this is how we shoot, we're going to be standing here at the ceremony, or this is where we're going to be during, the first look, or things of that sort, and really communicating as best as they can. And of course, maybe, not everyone will listen, but at least having that conversation beforehand, I think it's going to be really helpful. And that kind of builds a little bit of like a bond in a sense where it's like we're all on this one team together and we're working for one sole purpose for our clients, versus just being like, I'm my own vendor, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And so I think from both ends, it's just being open to the idea of it, and having that conversation beforehand. I think with a lot of videographers, and I've worked on video teams before, and I've also just worked weddings with videographers on the side. And I think they're just worried that this person is going to kind of take over or is going to create this like cinematic edit for their clients, which is really not the case, because at the end of the day, we're doing something that's so different, I think, because a videographer's edit is going to be so beautiful, so thought out, music, all of that stuff that goes into it. Whereas a content creator is really just quick, and it's still beautiful, it still captures the moments, but it's a very different edit versus a cinematographer. And I like to kind of explain that to them beforehand. And also just, I'm not there directing the angles or the shots and telling them like, it's time for you to walk or like time for you to kiss. Unless, there is a photography team or a video team that doesn't really direct and the client kind of wants that. So it really is a balance. I always like to tell them like, hey, if I'm in your shot, just yell at me, like tap me on the shoulder, like I will get out. Like, please, like, don't be hesitant to like call me out or tell me to move. Because it is you're the lead on this day. I'm just there as a behind the scenes.
Yeah. That's so good. You have such a good like teammate mindset. And I think that's what really, like, you were the very first content creator that our team ever worked with. And You set the bar honestly really, really high, because of just how, and I think it comes from your experience of working for filmmakers or photographers previously and learning the back end of their process and seeing what they go through on a wedding day and the pain points of what can really mess with their flow. And so you really are you have such like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that. And I think that that's so valuable to like if like wedding planners are like listening to this too, I think it's important for them to realize that when they're vetting who to bring on for as a content creator, that that content creator has, you know, experience within the wedding day where they understand how all of these teams operate. Because a few months ago, we had a content creator come on and it was our very first, I would say, not so great experience. And it all really came down to like it. I was wondering why it just felt so tough throughout the day. And it really just came down to the fact that I don't think she wanted to be a part of like the team as a whole. She was really just like operating on like in her own world, like cross shooting with us, and we'd be like, hey, why don't you come over here? And it was just like, it was really tough. But like you said, like we're all part of one unit. No one's trying to like steal anyone else's jobs, which is actually okay. This actually brings me to something. We see a lot of chatter in like Facebook groups and stuff of videographers saying that like content creators are out there to steal our jobs, or like we've even had some wedding planners say, like, interestingly enough, if they can't hire a videographer, they're opting for a content creator. And I think as videographers, they feel very threatened by that because they feel like content creators are coming in and like taking work and weddings from them. You're operating more in the luxury space. So do you see much of that, or do you think that's more of like a budget client mindset?
I think it's more of a budget client mindset, but also I've actually had these conversations fairly recently with a client that wanted something very similar to that. And for them, I kind of told them, I was like, I don't do what a videographer does. Like, that is not what I do, nor do I want to do that and provide those services. And so I explained to her exactly what I do and how it's, you know, very behind the scenes type content. Yes, it's like beautiful and it's edited and all of that, but there's no way that she's going to get the cinematic edit back. And for her, she came back and said, you know what, like, I don't necessarily want to spend that money on a videographer right now. And she's like, I'm on a budget. Like, my wedding is, you know, already costing me X amount, and we're getting married in 6 months, and we haven't had that much time to plan X, Y, and Z. And so she was like, for me, I would rather just not have a video team or anybody doing video, and I'll just get content from my friends and family. And then she was like, I thought about it and was like, maybe I'll just want something for like my ceremony and like the speeches. And I told her, I was like, well, okay, but I'm not going to have audio. I'm not going to have all the things that go into it. And I was like, you should probably hire a videographer for that, because they're the ones that are going to capture that, you know, amazing edit and get those speeches and all of that. And so she thought about it, and I sent her like a list of videographers that I love and work with. And she actually came back and was like, I really can't afford them. She's like, I would love to go forward with it, but I really can't afford them. And she was like, even your price is like too much for me. And so she was like, is there someone that you recommend, or like someone who can just literally come and put like like an iPhone on a tripod, or like and capture that? So for her, it was more so just a budget, and like she didn't have the amount. And she was like, she didn't really value videography, or nor does she really value content creation, I guess. It was just that she just wanted that footage. And so I do have clients like that who just want footage. And I don't think it's taking work away from videographers, because of course, like, you want to pay the vendor what they're worth. And so that client just, she knew that she couldn't afford it. And at that point, you know, what are you going to do? And so for her, like, this was an option where someone could come in for 3 hours or 4 hours and capture that footage and just give it to her and call it a day. So it's, I don't think it's taking work away from videographers, because it's so different. And again, it comes down to like the budget client and the luxury client. And in my luxury client world, I don't think I've worked with any bride and groom that don't have a videographer. They always have a videographer, because they do have the budget for it, they value that. And I think it's different, right? Like some people just can't afford to have a videographer.
Yeah.
And so it's just something like, do they want extra roses or do they not want extra? Like it's one of those things. And so, yeah, it's an interesting space to navigate. And I think from a videographer standpoint, I see where they're coming from because it is something so new and, it's really just taken off. And there are content creators out there that charge really little and will just do pretty much the same thing, but their quality is not there. And like you said, they don't have the experience in the wedding world and they don't know how to kind of function on a wedding date, which is what scares me, I think. And I've heard that from planners and florists from like so many different vendors that, we hired X, Y, and Z, and they don't really know how a wedding day works. There's like so much that goes into it. And we're always on a time crunch. Like there's never enough time for anything ever. And
Never.
so, yeah. And I feel like, others who aren't in this industry don't understand that. And, we're trying to do a million and one things and we are small teams. And so having that knowledge from being in the wedding industry, I respect that so much. And I think what I would tell other content creators even is really learn the industry and have those conversations with planners, videographers, and photographers and try to learn where they're coming from versus just going into it as if it was a brand shoot or things of that sort. Because a wedding day is so different from any other type of shoot.
Yeah, we've even heard from planners like if the client doesn't have a budget for a good videographer, they'd rather just not have one because bringing on a really novice team without the understanding of the flow of a luxury event or the etiquette of a luxury event can honestly derail the entire event and like cause catastrophe. So I would imagine it's really similar. And right now, we have Gen Z who's coming up in their early to mid 20s and content creation is something they were like grown up with and it's like a new thing, a new industry. And it kind of does worry me that there's going to be this like influx of content creators who are just so green when it comes to the wedding industry and not really understanding the dynamics, where there will be toes stepped on. But I just think it's a learning curve that everyone, like we all are going to have to go through it together and we'll come out the other side. It's the same as videographers. Like we're pretty new to the scene, the last decade, 15 years really. And photographers had to be very patient with us during our learning curves and learning the industry. And I think it's just the same with content creation. So if you're a videographer listening to this, just know it was just us a decade ago. Photographers, bless your hearts for all the patience that you give us. Yes. Okay, I would love to ask a few things. So we're talking about this conversation of, maybe some of this scarcity mindset of, oh, content creators are taking our jobs, things like that. And on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, we see a lot of people who are more opportunists. They're like, oh, this is a great opportunity for me to beef up my collections and my proposals and add on this additional service. So I would love to kind of talk about what that would look like, what it looks like when people or photo or video teams hire you onto their team, like contract out to you, or what it might look like if they were to try to offer that service themselves. Like what are kind of some things, I don't know, that come to mind?
Right. Yeah. So I actually work with a few videographers that will just bring me on to their own team because they know how I work. They like my footage and they like how I, edit my colors and all of that. And so I'm an added service to their already existing packages. So I'm not my own business. I work for them and I'm a contractor for them. And I give them all the footage and they'll edit and they'll do, whatever they want to do with that. But it is becoming more of an add-on for videographers to bring on a content creator. And I think it's hard to have a videographer become a content creator because they shoot very differently, right? It's the idea, the way that you're shooting, I think, is more cinematic and there's a lot more that goes into it versus a content creator is just different. Like I think it's, you're doing it a little bit more like quick edits. Like I'm not thinking about like, how is this cut going to look on this clip? You know what I mean? So whereas I feel like when videographers are filming, they kind of think of those things and like, how would this flow with the edit? And so I have a lot of teams that will just bring me on and I'll give them all the footage and they'll use that completely separate to, their existing edit. but also I'll have video teams that bring me on solely just to have that edit for their social media. And so vertical footage is where it's at. We all know that that's what Instagram and all the other apps are pushing out. And so it's really hard to get a horizontal filmed, footage and make it vertical. It takes skill, it takes time. And so a lot of teams will bring me on as their social media person, basically. And I'll create that edit for them, and then they'll post that on their socials. And then they'll also give that footage to their clients. And so it really is a benefit for the videographer to start offering something like this, because if your client's already booking you, they already trust you. They already know that, you're going to do great on the wedding day. So does the planner and everybody else that's involved. And so having this as an add-on, I think, is great because it just adds another dimension to the business. And I think content creators should be open to that because, again, we're all working as a team. And so, if a videographer is hiring you, they trust you, and that footage is going to be put out there anyways. And so I think it's a different medium, but it's a great add-on for videographers for sure.
Okay, this is so cool. And my business mind is just the wheels are spinning on how I can add this as a service for my clients and kind of maximize some of those profits this year. But I would love to kind of know what your pricing structure looks like, what that range might be, and if it's the same for a client-facing content creation package versus a vendor one. So whatever you're willing to share.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely going to be different. A vendor package versus a client package is two different things because a client will have a ton of different asks, whereas a vendor will have a specific ask of what they want on that day. And I custom all of my packages. So it really depends on where it's going to be, the date, how many hours and all of that good stuff. And so the range for a client is anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000, depending on how many hours they want and all of that. Whereas for a vendor, it can be a little bit less. So it's going to be closer to that 1,000 to 2,000 range, depending on the hours again. And so, especially if I'm not editing, because we all know that post-production is what
really takes
kills
up
all of
time.
us. Yeah.
Yep.
And so if I'm not editing, it's different. Whereas for a client, of course, I'm editing all this footage. And so from a vendor standpoint, it is going to be a little bit less because I am giving them all the raw footage.
Circling back a little bit, because I think one of the other things that photographers and filmmakers are a little bit concerned about is when you get a client who really wants the TikTok trends or Reels trends. And we all know, if we've all done TikTok trends and Reels trends, that those transitions or whatever it might be, it just takes time out of the day. How is it that are you communicating with the planner that you need X amount of time to be able to execute those? Because I think that photo and video is always afraid that that time is going to be eaten up that they felt like was once theirs. I'm using air quotes if you're watching on YouTube. And is that something, a conversation you're having with planners beforehand or clients beforehand to make sure that we're padding in enough time for those trends and reels and TikToks to be accounted for?
Yeah, 100%. So I have at least two conversations, one with the planner, one with the client before the wedding. And it's always a month before. So it gives them enough time to decide if anything changes between that time frame. And so I definitely, if they want, say 5 different trends, which I normally tell them, hey, it's not possible to do 5 because you're already running on the tightest time frame and everything runs late normally on a wedding day. And so we normally bring that down to 2, 3 at max, especially if it's something during the getting ready. And then I communicate that to the planner, hey, your client really wants this. It's important to them. I need at max 10 minutes. So if you can give me 10 minutes somewhere in there, I don't want you to take it away from photo and video. If you can add an additional 10 minutes. And if I don't get that done within the 10 minutes, I don't end up doing it. And I tell the clients that. So it's a conversation that I have with the clients beforehand. Hey, if we have time, then we'll do these trends. Unless, versus we're just going to do them and we'll take up, X amount of time. And so I like to kind of educate the clients as well that, hey, these trends are, if they're super important, if it's an influencer I'm working with, then of course, that's going to be really important to them, and we'll try to do our best to get it. But sometimes, those trends take time, like you mentioned. And if you have a big bridal party, getting everyone aligned, and it takes a few takes to do it. And so I like to tell the clients, like, hey, if we don't get it in the first like 2 takes and we're running on like 5 minutes left and we still have 2 more videos to do, we're not going to do all of them. And so I always tell them, give me a list of like your top 3 that you want to capture. And even if we get one, that's a win. And then we can like move on if we don't get the others. And so it really is educating the client. And most of the time the clients are like, well, we're going to get all of it. And like, there's going to be so much time. Like, I have the best planner, and you can have the best planner, but things always run a little bit behind, I feel like. And I never want to take away from actual like photo video time, because they need their shots and all of that. So I kind of give them a time frame and definitely communicate that to the planner, let them know that, hey, this is what I need. Please add that to their existing timeline. And that has worked so far. I've only had probably like a few clients who are like, we want all of these, reels done. And with those, like maybe I'll pull them aside like during like their little break between the ceremony starting and do those. So we'll adjust. It's not that we have to do it right then and right there. Like we'll adjust if we need to.
Amazing. It's all about setting those expectations at the end of the day. And that goes
It really
for
is.
everybody. Yeah. So for you, just letting them know like, hey, I'd love to do this for you. This is what it's going to entail. If not, this is what that's going to mean. It's the same thing. Like if a client comes to you as a photographer with a family shot list of 50 different combinations, and you're like, hey, I'd love to do this for you. Do you have 2 hours during
Right.
cocktail hour to do that? Because we can make that work, but this is what it's going to look like. Or maybe
Right.
it's like, we can knock out the 20 variations, and then those other 30 with your college friends and your aunts and uncles, like maybe those are at the reception. So I think that's so key is like what you do and for photo video, taking that into the wedding day as well. When clients do have some lofty goals for what they want on a wedding day, just educating them on, I'd love to do this for you. This is how it can be executed, just to set those expectations. So well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, definitely communicating, I think, is key, and communicating early on, like when they book you, and then kind of following through when you like have those conversations with them. I think that goes as a whole for any vendor, is really just openly communicating. And I think I've learned that over the years of being in this industry is you just have to like communicate, over communicate, because things can get lost in the mix, especially something that's so emotional as a wedding. Especially with your clients. And so I definitely like to over communicate if I can, and have everything in writing. That's, I think, really
Yes.
important, is have everything in writing, just because things can get lost, when you're having a conversation. So I like to kind of send like a recap, either it's a text message or an email, like, hey, this is what we talked about, and this is what we're going to do on your wedding day. So there's no surprises for anyone. And no one's like, sitting there going, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that.
Yeah. Cross those T's, dot the I's, get it all in writing. It is a business after all. As much as we love what we're doing, we love serving clients, like we have to protect ourselves too. So that's so great. Well, Saira, this has been such an incredible conversation. I think we both learned a lot, and I know our listeners did too. And I can just imagine all of the content creation add-ons that our listeners will be adding on for the 2025 wedding season, at least. If they are not already following you on social media, if they haven't yet connected with you online, where can they do that?
So I'm Social Saira on all different platforms. And thank you so much for having me. It's been great chatting with both of you.
Thank you for joining us in today's conversation. Please help us reach more filmmakers and photographers like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it to social media. And don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.